Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll kick off proceedings this evening. Before we start the official meeting, Councillor Paternoster has asked if she can make a statement, so the floor's yours.
The statement that concerns Clare Hill. Clare has actually agreed to what is on paper here, what I'm saying tonight. Clare Hill was clerk to Aston Parish Council from June 2010 until March 2014. Following Clare's departure to take up another position, comments were made at subsequent parish council meetings indicating that she was to blame for past mistakes involving the parish council. One item mentioned in public, in my presence, was the authorisation of payment in the region of £1,000 for the repositioning of a lamppost in Chestnut Close, which was not the parish council's responsibility. Clare came to see me last year to ask if I would help clear her name by making a statement on her behalf at a parish council meeting. Following Clare's comments and the lack of information available from ABDC's legal department at the time, I decided to carry out my own investigation into what had happened at Aston Parish Council. I also spoke to Tony Ayres. I handed my report to ABDC's legal department and the cabinet member in charge of standards. My findings were identical to the findings of the external solicitor employed by ABDC, which culminated in the standards committee hearing. I asked ABDC legal department how Clare could clear her name and was informed that the only way this could be done was by taking her case to an industrial tribunal, as Tony Ayres had done. I could not ask Clare to go through this legal procedure. Therefore, I returned to her original suggestion of making a statement at a parish council meeting. My findings were that Clare was unable to carry out her duties as clerk to Aston Parish Council due to constant external pressure upon her at every stage. She was very aware that she was not able to work to the standard she would have wished through no fault of her own. The investigation into Aston Parish Council cost ABDC a 5-figure sum for the use of an external solicitor with experience in standards cases such as this, as well as an enormous amount of officer time. Due to recent changes in the law, ABDC has very little power once a case such as this has been proved. All we can request, is further training. Previously, the monitoring authority had more powers. ABDC, with 113 parishes in the district, cannot go through another case such as this. We have written to the Local Government Association setting out our case and requesting them to pursue with government a change in the law which will give us greater weight if we are expected to carry out monitoring duties. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Very welcome. Thank you. Okay, we'll press on with normal business then, and this meeting is now being recorded. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Toby Comerford.
Yes, and Suzanne is temporarily outside having her son invested in beavers, I think it is, so it comes in, she'll be in shortly. Any personal interests, declaration of personal prejudice interests that we need to be aware of for this evening's agenda?
No.
Fine. Minutes of the last meeting have been circulated, and I know comments have been incorporated. Any latter comments or observations on the minutes?
No, fine.
Proposal for the minutes, please. And seconder, others, Liz and Jean. All in favour? That's unanimous. I'll sign it. matters arising. We have one matter arising from the last meeting. If you recall, as was circulated in the correspondence folder, there was a request from the guides for a donation. This is an event that happens every period of time, 3 or 4 years I think it is, and between 800 and 1,000 guides go to Brownsley Island for a Bucks Fest type camping, I think, and there are 8,000 guides in Bucks. So it's actually the Bucks Guiding Association that's written to us and asked us for a contribution. We didn't put a motion against this particular item until we looked at the date for response and realised that if we're going to make a meaningful contribution, then we need to look to pass something now, because July, they go away at the end of July, beginning of August, so the July motion may not be timely enough for them. So we also need to understand, I've circulated emails around the context of this in terms of section 137 donations under which this comes, and this is based upon the number of beneficiaries versus the number of head count that we've got, and the 2004 figure is £7.20 per head count. So our section 137 pot of money for this year is of the order of £29,000. But there are only 8 guides, and well, some guides and 1 leader, if I'm not mistaken, some guides and 1 leader going, so it becomes actually quite a small amount of money that we are allowed within the section 137 rules to donate if we were minded to do so. And that actually works out at about £55. So it's not a big sum of money, but it's the process, because when we come to the audit, we've got to have shown that we've accounted for it in accordance with the rules. So so that's the sum of money that we're talking about. My initial email to you was thinking there might be 40 of them going, so it's going to be around about 300. Would have been £300. But the reality is, now we've checked and Jill's made a phone call to clarify precisely what their entitlement, if I can use that word, is under section 137. It's brought it right down, as I indicated it might do in the email, brought it right down to the figure of about £55. So first of all, we need to decide whether that is a motion that we would wish to pass tonight, given the timing nature of it. And I would wish to invoke Standing Order 26, Standing Order 11 and Standing Order 10. 10 is the 3 days notice for a motion, 11 is the standing order that allows us to introduce an impromptu motion, and 26 is the one that allows us to do all that anyway. So under 26, 11 and 10 I'd like to waive, I don't think this one's ever been used before, it's there. I'd like to waive the standing orders which prevent us from an impromptu material motion and propose a motion that we agree to donate a sum within the section 137 allowance, you happy with this, it's been recorded, to be precisely defined, but in the order of £55 towards our guides who are going on this event. That's my motion.
Okay.
Any debate or a seconder?
No.
Seconded?
Those in favour? Thank you, unanimous. Right. Got a longer debate doing that, but that's first part of that. Okay, so moving on to public participation. First of all, before I open it to the floor, I just wanted to revisit one point. The gentleman here who I didn't know at the time, I didn't see him speaking earlier, Tony Gibbs, who asked a comment about due diligence being done on the previous tenant of the pavilion, the Aston Limited. I realised on reflection, and I tried to speak to him within a couple of days, that I was a little short and not very constructive in my reply. Heat of the moment, I would suggest. But I have spoken to him subsequently, and we've had a very good conversation. And what I've suggested to him is, if he wants to follow up on that particular topic, he's perfectly entitled to do so in writing to the clerk, even perhaps using the Freedom of Information request. And that's another option which I wasn't quick enough on my feet to think about at the time. But so I just wanted to close that one out as a way forward for that particular gentleman. So, open to the floor. Any questions about what's on the agenda tonight, please?
It'd be handy if I had an agenda.
There we go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nothing springs to mind?
Can I just,
No.
I mean, obviously haven't seen the minutes from the last meeting, but is it appropriate to ask about the question asked about Green Park and stuff, and how that might move forward, or is it?
We haven't had, as far as I'm aware of the committees, that hasn't been on the radar in the last. 2.5 weeks. So if we can, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, that's
We've
absolutely
been,
fine.
sort of trying to do planning and pavilion and things like that. I know that's where
Okay.
because as you'll hear, we've had all the committee meetings and some of the subcommittee meetings and all that sort of stuff in the last couple of weeks since the last council meeting.
I've just got one question under 1576. Public participation. I wonder if you can answer whether in fact there's an update on 106 monies to the council.
What's the question about the update?
Well, the last meeting I attended, there was a question asked which was left in the air, possibly. But the question really is, do we have a mechanism for knowing what 106 money we're entitled to?
Yes, and we have had a spreadsheet from Mr. Houston.
Yeah.
Yes. We know that there were 2 parcels of money from earlier developments.
Yeah.
There's another parcel of money now that Stablebridge Road has started. I'm not going to try and trot out the numbers, because I know ballpark and not precise.
No.
And we put a marker down for, that was an extraordinary meeting on April 23rd, 27th, something like that. Put a marker down for Brook Street, College Road South, which is a sizable portion of money, but we know that the council's not in support of that development. But we had to meet a milestone. So there are 3 confirmed, 1 additional one of the order of £230,000, which we had to put a marker down before the end of April. So it's probably a fuller answer than your question.
What actually I was going towards is the mechanism that you have for deciding what you do with the 106 money.
Will you picking that up under the planning section, or are you comfortable to take that question now? We'll defer it to another meeting.
Yeah, because we haven't at the moment, this council hasn't actually had, it's all been done prior to this council forming the 106 money, so we haven't really had our handle on it. The last one, I think, which is what Norman alludes to, is the one we had to put in, which involved a lot of discussion, because it was debated as to whether we even needed to request it. But the chance was, if we didn't request it, we wouldn't get it. Although this was way in the future, wasn't it? Which was all slightly odd to us. But we don't really know, per se, this council, as what the money was got. I'd have to dig into that for you and get back to you if you want to know exactly how much 106 money. We don't actually, at the moment, receive 106 money. It doesn't, if 106 money, say for Stablebridge Road, which was whatever it was, 260, they don't then send us a cheque.
It's 168,000.
Yeah, they don't send us a cheque.
No, I know.
That goes to AVDC under section 106, and then we have to apply to AVDC with a project to get that money back. And this is all changing now, because it's now changed to something called SIL.
Yes, and that's brought the question up.
Community Infrastructure Levy, which now has different rules, but the one thing that should be better about SIL is that it's specific to the parish that the houses are built in.
Yes.
So we should have more reason to get hold of that money, whereas before it could go to anywhere within AVDC.
Indeed.
Now it has to come to the parish. But there are also, although that's a bonus, there are more restrictions on it, I understand, than what there was on the 106. So they give it with one hand and they take it away with the other, as is always the way.
Yeah. Well, the third reason for asking was I had a conversation with the planning officer yesterday, and he informed me that if this council, under these new rules, hasn't a mechanism, which I'm sure it will have in the fullness of time when everyone's settled down, the developer can actually ask for it back.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, that is true. If it's not that, but then AVDC would not let that happen. Anyway.
Well, hopefully not,
So
but their organisation...
We are aware of that. This is exactly what happened on the case that we voted on, which caused a lot of discussion, because we, such far in the future, hadn't even been granted, but I said, if you don't apply for it, you might not get it.
Indeed.
We did go for that one. I can't remember which one that was applicable to.
So,
Brook Street,
Brook Street, wasn't it?
So,
yeah.
really, what I would like is some sort of report back at the next meeting, if we can, as to the mechanism of where we go in this new framework.
Okay, fine.
If that can be done.
Yeah, I'll take that up. Okay.
This is very, very important.
Yeah.
Good, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Any
Cheers, Bob.
questions from the floor?
Yes, with regard to the motion for the land swap, when we discussed that, will you be able to give an indication of what the cost will be to the council of the land swap? And also, I'd like to know what is the benefit to the residents of you taking this action?
Okay,
What's the land swap?
I'll be describing that when we come to that particular agenda item, if that's okay.
May I just pick up on section 106, money and the change? I think it's going to be easier with SIL, but what you will need is, if I put it bluntly, a shopping list of projects. So get the shopping list ready so that you can be signed up for that. With the section 106, yes, the money could go back to the developer, but after 10 years, if it's not spent after 10 years, then it has to go back to the developer. But, so you have got a bit of time with that. But previously, where it was Joe Houston who could look on a rain reckoner and tell you what you could have, this time you make the list.
I think Joe's, my understanding is Joe's been very supportive and helped us through that bit of urgency we had before the end of April.
Yeah.
Sorry, following on that, if I may, it appears that one of our problems is when the developers move in, it's the roads, the schools and the doctors which are under pressure. And yet this council has no direct influence. You couldn't say get £200,000 to build a new road or to extend the school. That's with another authority. Do you have any control whatsoever over that, or is it the same old stuff, it wafts off?
Look to Colin, perhaps, if there's an immediate answer in terms of your...
We've taken this up in cooperation with Carol as well, and the previous chairman of the planning turned me into one. They sent a letter to AVDC specifically on this point about the education and health. And although the response is, is as best they could give, they will not come down to a number. They won't do that. The school, that is more worth pursuing. I think we may be able to get closer to numbers on the school side of things. With the investigation direct to the schools, it went over in here. We can actually probably nail that, but we have to do that, they won't. And on the other side of things, the health, they will not do that, because if you talk to them, they just say, yeah, we're open. But whoever you want, however many you want, we'll take it.
Or at least it's a small step.
Yeah, but we are totally aware of that, and we are trying to come up with some figures, to say, look, if there's only 14 places at the school, how exactly do you expect 120 new houses of 2.2 dwellings to fit into that school?
I've also spoke to Mrs Shepherd. I've actually spoken to her today, and she's waiting for your phone call.
Great,
because saying there is.
I'm a little bit dubious. I've run the once and after this, and I'm
she's expecting
her about it. She is
very much.
Great.
There is not the capacity to take more houses and to accommodate.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, with the roads and schools, it is Bucks County Council who asks for the funding there. I'm very concerned at the moment that they are not asking for sufficient funding from the developers for the roads and for the schools. So what I'm doing is I'm picking it up with, as far as schools are concerned, I'm going to make an appointment to see the new cabinet member for education and talk it through with him. Because this use of a road reckoner, which we have seen, I've got so many houses, all right, this is the amount of money, is not sufficient. They really do have to think of the actual area where those children will be.
That's exactly what we're trying to have over. We don't just want you going 43 houses times 300 quid, that job done. That's not what we want.
Roads, they're not taking funding that they should, and the doctors, well, every time we contact the NHS, they say that they don't need.
No.
They don't need anything, but they should be taking that funding as capital to put into the premises so they can provide more services for a larger population. I'm afraid, with the NHS, I just can't get anywhere, I'm sorry.
Carol, I was thinking about doing it, is there any way you think where there is, if you go to a government agency and say, we have one surgery with 4 doctors or whatever it happens to be, what should be the base figure of people that can belong to that? Is that something we could find out?
I mean, we can find out.
You couldn't
Is there a sort of approved figure that they should work to? Do we think? Do we know?
Can I invite Professor Peel to
Yes,
take that on?
there are published norms on per number of patients per doctor. They obviously depend on the demography of elderly and young and various different age groups. But if you can give me the demography you're interested in, I can probably get you the published norms.
Okay, that'd be brilliant.
Just a point, sorry.
Yeah, I've got some.
Right, Colin, you finished on that one?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The point about the Bucks County Council and their inability to give you a projected figure is rubbish. They have a projected figure.
Well,
They must have.
Well,
But they won't give it you.
no.
They must have a figure, so they can't employ people.
Who elected them?
Sorry, hold on. Keith.
Sorry, but it's true.
I understand. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Yes, they have got a ready reckoner that they use, but the figure that they're using in the ready reckoner just doesn't bear any resemblance to the amount of money they should be asking these developers for. £10,000 per house is insufficient for the educational needs of, the people in that area. £10,000 on the cost of a house is peanuts. And they need to get out there and ask the developers for more money and get that money and put it into the local education system here. Not Wendover, Aston.
Quite right.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Any other questions from the floor?
Thank you, Chairman. There's another pot of money, New Homes Bonus, which AVDC is projected to have millions over the next few years from the growth in the Vale. So that is another pot of money that Aston Clinton can tap into. But again, you need a shopping list of projects. So to me, this all comes to neighbourhood plan, where we've consulted with the community, find out what is it, I've been in Aston Clinton 4 years, you're pretty wealthy for facilities, if I'm honest. There's a great facility here. Okay, the hub is a project, I've heard about that, fine, I get that one.
You mean the new community centre?
Yeah. The football pitch probably could do with relaying and modernising, whatever.
Can I reassure you, we do have a shopping list.
Yeah. So, with neighbourhood plan, you're trying to accelerate that forward, so as that goes to the community for consultation, it'd be interesting what comes out of that. So that might help align a shopping list.
The New Homes Bonus, we're also very aware, and that's one of our urgencies in terms of forming a new subcommittee of the Facilities Committee for the Community Centre, is there's a window by the end of September to have submitted a feasibility study with costly plans. So that's on our radar, and prior to the election there was no guarantee as to what would happen after September. I've not been informed, somebody may be better informed than me as to what happens after September, but as far as we're concerned that's the last window of opportunity that we're aware of on the New Homes Bonus. And I believe the pot is 800,000, which is not a pot exclusively for us, but if that's what we're aiming at in one part for the sort of shopping list projects that we've got in mind. But thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from the floor? Okay, fine, thank you. Well,
I just wanted to talk a little bit about communicating with the Parish Council. We now have all the Parish Councillors' contact numbers and email addresses up on our website and also posted on the notice board outside. They've all stated that they're happy to hear from people. The best way to contact me is via email because I'm part-time and I'm not always here to answer the phone. Email should state the nature of the problem along with the name and the contact detail of the person. It might be helpful if you research whether the issue falls under the Parish Council's responsibility or under another authority, because we get a lot of complaints about issues which we don't actually have the authority to deal with. For example, we've had lots of calls about the cutting of the roadsides and the verges, which is the responsibility of transport for bucks. But I do understand that it's not always easy to work out who does what. On a different or related matter, we also now have a Parish Council Facebook site. It is for broadcast only, i.e. for us to publish what we're doing, as is the common practice, and not for us to receive messages. I do apologise that this was incorrectly set up at first as an interactive site. It took us a while to figure this out. And the original site has been suspended, which has meant that we've unfriended some of you. You're asked to be our friends, so don't take it personally. But you can now like our page instead of being our friend. A couple of other matters. We've had 2 very good applications from people wishing to be co-opted onto the council. But that remains open until about September, so that's just an update for now. These will be discussed at the next meeting along with any others that come along. We are still not able to send emails to BT accounts from our office here. We've discovered that the problem is with BT and not with us or our service provider. Apparently they're notorious for this, and there are several chat sites full of complaints about this to do with BT. All right, last little thing. You may be interested to know that finally Companies House have issued a notice that the hub, Aston Clinton Limited, will be dissolved in 3 months from the 2nd of June and struck off their register.
Okay, thank you very much. And correspondence?
Yes, 4 items this month. We've had a letter from the NHS South Central Ambulance Service asking for volunteers if anybody would like to attend a community first responders course. And that's so that there are qualified first responders on site in the village. That's the theory behind it. It doesn't have to be a councillor, it could be anyone from the community, but they're offering the training. The second item is from the head teacher of Aston Clinton School regarding us, the parish council, possibly sharing the cost and use of a defibrillator. Those are quite on trend in parish councils at the moment. The third item is from a PR company for Taylor Wimpey Homes. They are offering vouchers to the children who won the street naming competition, which you'll remember was for the roads at the new development on Stablebridge Road. So they're going to hand out vouchers to those children and have some sort of photo op going on. So Mrs. Shepherd knows about this, doesn't she?
She contacted them yesterday.
Okay, so that's in hand.
Yeah.
Lovely. And then the last thing is, it wasn't actually to us, but we were copied in, and I thought it was interesting, so I've included it. It was from a resident here in the village, Simon Ike, to David Liddington, our MP. And it's about affordable housing for young local people in this village, as opposed to the, what do they call it, up on Stablebridge Road?
Luxury dwelling.
Luxury 4 to 5 bedroom homes, I think it's called.
But they are only advertising, sorry, they're only advertising their section of it, aren't
So
they?
I
They have to sell those first, don't they?
Yeah.
And then once they've sold those, they buy
Oh, is
the
that
build the
what it is?
affordable housing.
Okay.
So I'm going to
Supposedly,
pass that to you
allegedly.
first.
Well, it's got to go then.
Unfortunately, we managed to find the folder, last month's folder before this meeting. Okay, so finance and staff, moving on to that. We had the first meeting with finance and staff, and Susie, it's okay, I'd like to walk through the report for Susie, which was away on holiday at the time. Susie was selected as chairman, and I was appointed as vice chairman for that committee. And we've asked Jeff Plowman to work with us in an advisory role in terms of continuity, because as you're all aware, he helped manage the financial situation from the summer last year. So that's a composition. I want to bring 3 main topics to the table today. This is partly one of Jeff's inputs, but also the reality of where we are. The way in which we get the financial management information, and you see it in the minutes of the meeting, so we get a pack here, doesn't necessarily help us with the best budget management and understanding how much we've got left to invest after the essentials. So what we're looking at is moving away from the plethora of budget subheads that we've got into something a little bit simpler, running costs and programme costs. And within running costs, there'll be breakdowns for each of the committees, and within that there'll be the essential maintenance work and also the repair side. And the programme cost side of it will be much more along the lines of the community centre, the neighbourhood plan, whatever it happens to be, the big stuff that we want to make the investment, so we can see what the balancing act is and give us better visibility and money management of it. The second part of the running costs is we get this sheet every month from Jill, and Jeff talked about this a number of times doing it. Many of the things we have no flexibility on. They're going out the door anyway, because they are what we have to pay to keep this operation going. So we're going to put a working party together starting next week and just look at things that we as a council may be able to sort of pre-approve, subject to plus or minus, I don't know, 5 or 10% variation, such that we don't have to worry about those every month. We know that Jill's got to pay the lighting bill for the street lights, and unless it swings wildly away from the original budget, either in month or over the year, we'll take that as read. So we're going to try and simplify that side, so we can spend more time focusing on the things that matter, i.e. where we want to make our investment and changes. We think that this should make life easier, and we're going to try and work it through in June and bring it back in the new structure for the July meeting. But bear with us, the idea is for the end of June for the finance staff meeting to get that revised approach. It doesn't change what Jill records, she still records all the incoming and outgoing by the bank and the cash and DDs and things like that. It's just it's very much management of it. The second one refers very much to your observation on new homes bonus. What I've been tracking over the last few months with Jill's assistance is all the sources of funds that do become available to the council in various shapes and guises and sizes and opportunities. If I just run through the headings, the War Memorials Grant Scheme, Aston Foundation, Gibb Lane Community Fund, which is the solar panel farm to the north, European Structural Fund, 15.7 million euros, Big Lottery Fund, Wren and Viridor were brought to our attention. I would say many of these are brought to our attention by EVDC. Janroth, that's it, sorry, I knew there was a Jan in there. And very grateful for that input, we were. But we don't live enough close to a landfill site to qualify for the Wren and Viridor ones. Leader, which is a rural community one, Aylesbury Vale Community Chest, New Homes Bonus. In a slightly different view, the budgets that could be passed down by way of Bucks County Council devolved services, and obviously there's a big debate about what we're talking about in terms of do we want to cut grass ourselves and things like that. Opportunistic, should be talking to ARA about their community fund, which they may not have started yet, because there is one with Aviva, who are insurers, and obviously the prospects of local charities and things like that. So that's a little catalogue we put together. Some of these pots of money are quite modest, but conversely, they may be the sort of thing that our user communities, with our support, guidance and assistance, can actually tap into, whether it's the Youth Club, U3A, whatever it happens to be. So I wanted us to be a little bit more proactive in terms of sharing this knowledge and information and facilitating those who might have a demand for a pot of money to be able to access them.
Are you going to put that on the website?
That's for us to discuss and decide. I haven't drawn a conclusion on that. This was literally presented at Finance and Staff last week, so it's in its early stages, but something we could consider.
Oh yeah, I think that's the best way.
And like all these things, it's not to be hidden away in a drawer. No, it's just a question of how to. And not, we've got obviously the clerk being the person that people will contact. We've got to work out how that's going to work out as well. So anyway, I just want to share that one. That's what we're proactively doing. So the third one, those of you who were at meetings earlier in the year will recall that the Finance and Staff Subcommittee for Staffing brought to the table a case to recruit a part-time assistant for them. That faltered for a variety of reasons. I think at one stage you had a couple of prospective candidates. For a variety of reasons it didn't materialise, or the individuals didn't materialise. We discussed this at the Finance and Staff meeting last week, and there is a very clear mood from the members of that committee to actively pursue the recruitment of an assistant person for the clerk now. Jill's coped unbelievably well, not just with the challenges of the role, etc., the last 6 months, just the workload on a day-to-day basis, and having spent some time in here now, it's just incessant. And we know that certain critical things, which we'd like to have done, are not being done. So the motion that I've got on the agenda here for tonight is to approve the recommendation to recruit an assistant clerk. We looked at the cost implications. The biggest outgoing, because we do all the tender documents and the spec and all that sort of stuff ourselves, was the advertisement in the Bucks Herald, which was about £330 for Jill's recruitment last year. So that was the only material outgoing cost. We're looking at something in the order of 16 hours a week, and you think in terms of overlapping, providing greater continuity in the office, resilience, redundancy, those sorts of things. Jules can have a holiday or go sick, But those sorts of things that we just don't have any
at all.
No resilience at all at the moment, which I think leaves us as a council quite vulnerable. And with 4,000 residents, we're on a par with some other big communities, which is the justification for the bigger community centre. We're not the council we were 20 years ago in terms of the size of the population. So 16 hours a week, we're trying to work out the right competency salary structure. We're struggling to get some definitive guidance on that, although I think we were going to try and talk to some neighbouring councils who have got this clerk, assistant clerk structure. But we're looking probably at a salary, subject to final confirmation within all the committees and things, for about £7,500 a year for that part-time, 50% part-time.
How does that sit within our budget?
That's what we've still got to revisit in terms of how that would now shape up with our priorities and spending. Because there isn't a budget line in there, but part of this exercise that we're looking to do
is a considerable sum, is it?
Correct, and that's what we've got to look at. So what I'm looking for at this stage is that agreement in principle that we start the process, and then if necessary, if you want me to come back with a more defined picture, we can do that. Okay. In terms of the budgetary side, but that's what we've got to look at in terms of where our investment opportunities are.
I think it's worth mentioning that there are cost benefits in that if we had a better resource within the office, we wouldn't be paying extortionate rates for locum clerks to cover periods of absence and sickness. So there is an upside to the cost benefit.
I think we're paying £20 an hour for a locum clerk.
As and when, which we haven't employed yet.
We employed one for back end of last year, Christine James.
Oh, that's right.
Yes. So the local clerk costs are significantly higher. But yes, probably if you've had somebody for a couple of months, and we've got to think of a sort of scenario.
Yeah.
And we do actually have some budget provision in there for contingency for recruitment for a new clerk. That's a line item already in the budget.
Okay.
So, my motion is to approve the recommendation to recruit an assistant parish clerk, but I'm more than happy to take on board the point about coming back with how it's going to be paid for.
Before we actually agree.
Okay. Do you want to pause that now then? Not take that motion forward?
Well, that's my view, but I'm only one of 9, so...
Okay, so my motion's on the table. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Vote in favour of the motion? 5 in favour.
Okay.
But I do take the take the responsibility of coming back, showing that
okay, thanks all. Okay. Yep.
All right. Thank you. That completes finance stuff. Colin, would you like to take us through planning update?
Yeah, can I just have one quick aside of this before we...
Okay.
Yeah, fine. Okay, well everyone should have got a copy. I emailed this round to everyone about what's been going on the planning side of things. We had a meeting on the 1st of June. First bit was election of the chair and vice chair. The chair being myself, and Liz was elected vice chair. Okay, and we co-opted 2 members, Mr. John Watson, who most of you know from previous meetings here, I'm sure. John's very good. He's been in the village a long time, and he knows a lot of virtually everything in the history of the place. And he is very good at going around looking at all these small applications which come in by the myriad, for dormer extension and all this sort of stuff. And John goes and casts his eye over it and then feeds it back to the rest of us. And if it's big or important enough or contentious, then we will go and have a look. And we'll come to one of those in the future. So that's John's main role. So we co-opted him. And also Mr. Tony Winterbottom, who was on the council before. I know there might be some faces of actually the previous council member. However, he has got great knowledge in 106 money and SIL, and how to extract that from the relevant authorities and how to use it. So he is hopefully going to be very useful on that side of things. So that's his area of expertise and why we co-opted him. No interest declared for any of the issues that we talked about. We approved the minutes of the previous meeting. Touched on earlier with Carol, which was the community information sent to ABDC by the previous chairman, Mr. Tony Winbottom, asking for further information, read the schooling health groups in Aston Clinton. So, we have not been inactive on this thing. But as we said, the reply was received, meeting here with ABDC councillors Carol and Bill Chappell, and just saying again, in essence, the health division of the village need to be resolved. We've talked to Mr. Pillar, so we've got some other leads there which we can do, and the education problem also, and both of those things come into the neighbourhood plan as well, which we are fully aware of, and that is going to be a big part of the neighbourhood plan, but that's a slightly different subject. And we've got constructive advice and comments incorporated from ABDC as well on that letter. So you've heard a lot about that, I won't bang on about that. There were two small applications during this month, 1501-290 and one, both for Rookery House, which was no objection, and 15015789, which was Putnam Drive, which we put no objection for that. They were two very small ones. We took slightly out of order because the next one we want to talk about was this removal of 2 trees on council land adjoining 16 Green End Street. Now this was a very old application for an extension, single-story garage and a single-story above, like a loft conversion above the garage, which we had no objection to, and it was approved and went through. And then Jill subsequently had a contact. Well, he actually said the guy who was going to do the trees contacted us and said, are you aware that the gentleman on 16 wants these 2 trees down and they're on your land? Which of course we heard nothing about this until kindly this guy mentioned it to us. So obviously we then had I looked through the planning document on the ABDC website, and he had ticked the boxes saying that there were trees within falling distance, but they didn't need pruning and or felling. And now he's decided he wants to fell them. And he even seemed to intimate to the tree surgeon that he had our approval. Is that not correct, Jill? It seems to be, apparently. So anyway, we've talked to ABDC about that, and they said that's a civil matter between you and the person in there. Obviously he's not allowed to cut them down, shouldn't be. So we had a motion on that, passed. We all looked at it, you looked at it, I looked at it, and Peter looked at it, and we absolutely do not want these 2 trees down. They're 2 lovely field plane trees on the footpath. I don't know the number, but normal probably have
ACL08.
ACL08, which is as you walk down Green End Street, there's a big wide footpath on the right hand side with a big laurel. It's just down the right hand side. So we put a letter to the gentleman concerned saying we do not wish him to take, and he would be in breach of whatever if he takes him out. So we delivered that letter. Well, we sent the letter, and I've also been in touch with Mr. Branston, ABDC, and requested TPOs to be put on those 2 trees, and that is proceeding. So that was a lot to do about 2 trees, but hey. Moving on to that, we then went on to the large applications. There's a flyer circulating around parts of the village proposing development in College Road South, which I'm sure some of you have seen and some of you haven't. This is not a full planning application at the moment. So it was decided that a letter from Parish was sent to the developer stating our objection in plain terms. That's no specifics, so this is not yet a full-blown application. The other application, 50 houses with access from 93 Aylesbury Road, 93, 95? 95 Aylesbury Road, was deemed to be unsustainable, and a full objection is going to be drafted to that by myself, and that's Plan 1501-395. But that is not something we just send a letter or a consultee comment without going through in quite detail of what things, because they pick out paragraphs from the the NPPF and all that sort of stuff. So you have to go into it, extract the paragraph, see what they're trying to say, find the corresponding paragraphs if you can't do that. So that requires a little bit more effort. So that's going to be done this week by me, and I'll send it off. The last item in this section concerns a request from Taylor Wimpey for the council, this is the parish council, to adopt a planned amenity area within the development of Stablebridge Road. They're putting in, they have to do that by design because it's a certain number of houses. And they offer some money towards that. However, you don't know how much money is, and once you commit to it and adopt it, it's an ongoing thing the parish have to take all the time. So we decided we didn't want to do that. And the best way for them to go through that is that we're going to send them a letter saying we do not wish to take it up, and basically it's up to them to form a management company if they want to do that and look after it themselves, or the developer takes it on and he looks after it, but it's not going to be our concern. It would just cost the village money at the end of the day, so we decided not to do that. So that's been done. There was an update on the neighbourhood plan which was given by Liz. This outlined the progress to date and the desire to accelerate the plan as much as possible. Liz has done a lot of work on this. We've had 2 meetings already. We had the last meeting on Saturday with the lady who does all the timelines and sorting out how and what we have to do. And we've got another meeting this Saturday with the guy on the planning, the lady on the planning side of things, who get down to more nitty-gritty. So we are not hanging about. We are doing as much as we can, but with all the meetings, Liz and I have about one every other day. So we are doing our best, and Carol's going to help us a lot with the NH and neighbourhood plan as much as we can as well. But it's a big thing. We know it should have been started a couple of years ago, but it wasn't. Hey, there's nothing we can do about that. We've just got to get on with it now. That's all we can do. But of course, because they know we're doing it, this does unfortunately encourage all these speculative people, because they see it's going up and they start chucking it in. There's not much we can do about that, but we do acknowledge it's been of utmost importance to the village. That was about it really. The next meeting was agreed that we're not going to fix a date because it's such a thing with us in the planning side of things. It depends what comes in, but we do have it every month, and it's a week's notice to all the members on the planning committee, and we meet every month. And any comments you have towards that, you've got our contact now. Most of you know me anyway now, and Liz, Julia, special note to Julia, really very good at searching ABDC website and coming up with all the bits and pieces that we miss.
Happy Horizon and constant.
You are really good at that. Because I understand the new road one was turned down, wasn't it? Which I don't know what grounds did we establish. I don't think.
No,
did you find that? No, it didn't say. It just
turned down.
That was it. That was the 5 houses down New Road.
Stratford Close has had highways.
And Stratford Close has just had the highways negative report about that. That's the 30 houses in Stratford Close. They are recommending refusal, but we suspect that will go back and be redesigned. But they have a little bit more problems. There were 2 paragraphs in there that were saying this is contrary to the NPPF. But I don't quite know what he is referring to in terms of the NPPF. But it was
be withdrawn now.
Yeah, and redone. Maybe.
Okay.
I think.
Any questions from around the table? No, none at all. Okay. Thank you very much. An oversight on my part, we didn't actually approve the expenditure for May to be agreed at this meeting, so let me just run through the headline stuff.
Can I just query something, Jim? When I had a bill from Buckley Landscapes for the normal contractual work,
I think that came in today, but I've only included that to the end of the day. That came yesterday or today.
Okay, so let me just read out the headlines. Commercial cleaning of the pavilion, churchyard fountain work and respraying of the footpaths, the annual alarm contract with the pavilion, some legal charges relating to the land swap on the boundary situation, services Mr McGoldrick and Mrs Havasova for the park and office cleaning, the electrical inspection and the essential highly desirable repairs prioritised as we did them for the play park and the trim truck based on the playground inspection equipment.
Yeah, point of that, I just noted they've actually fixed the gates as well, we cut those out. really good.
Yes, so there's a welder come in and
Yeah.
enlarge the holes.
Noticed that on my weekly inspection. Very good.
Good. So my apologies. I forgot to look for any observations and approvals for that. Any observations on those? Everything else above the line is direct debits and the standard
Yeah.
stuff. So, proposal for those payments to be made, please. Fine. Seconder. Anybody in favour? Sorry, all those in favour? Fine. You're unanimous.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Carried away, recruitment.
Right. Facilities.
Right.
Hand over to Alan, please.
The first meeting of the new...
Sorry, Alan, can I just interrupt you? Can you take items 1 and 3, which I think is the way your report is structured, which is the general report and then the update on the tenancy side?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And then I'll come and pick up on the boundary
Yes.
side of things, okay? Thank you.
Right. The first meeting of the Facilities Committee was on the 23rd of May. I was elected as chairman with Jean as vice chairman, and Leslie Ronson was co-opted onto the Grounds Maintenance and Sports and Recreation subcommittees. Items that have happened: sale of redundant grounds equipment. The ride-on mower that we had, which was damaged beyond economic repair, has been sold for £500. The disposal of the remaining equipment in the compound will be discussed at the Grounds Maintenance Subcommittee, which is meeting on Friday of this week, and that will produce a recommendation back to the Facilities Committee. Churchyard. There have been a number of complaints about the cutting of the grass in the churchyard. I have a meeting tomorrow with the Reverend Moxley and Councillor Birch to go around the churchyard, look at the problem. I've visited Drayton Beecham and Buckland churchyards to have a look at what they do. I spent about an hour talking to the groundsman at Drayton Beecham. So we have an appreciation of what's happening in the other churches within the benefice, and I'm fairly certain that we can arrive at an affordable and satisfactory resolution to the problem. Footpaths. Now, this is going to put Norman out of business. On the Parish Council website, there is now a list and a map of all the footpaths within the village. And all their little numbers, which Norman can quote off verbatim. The point bit, it's really interesting to see where they go, because it's really exploring. But we occasionally get people complaining about the state of footpaths, and it's very difficult to know where exactly they're talking about, because everybody has a different perspective of where things are. And all I would say is, if you can refer to the website, find your footpath, and know exactly where it is, we would appreciate that, because with that sort of information, we can get action taken quicker. In terms of complaints on things like that, could I ask that we have a complaints section on our website, which is geared up to report straight to the clerk, that putting photographs and things with funny comments on Facebook isn't very constructive at being able to resolve the problem. And that's what we really want to do at the end of the day. As an aside, we are also going to, as part of the Grounds Maintenance Subcommittee, make a dedicated effort strictly with footpaths, that we want to greatly improve the standard of those that are around at the moment and make them much more usable. But that is a project in its own right. Security. The question of security in the park was discussed, particularly with the increasing incidences of antisocial behaviour. And it was agreed that we as a council will seek advice and guidance on appropriate measures and equipment such as CCTV that will improve the security within the park and deter vandalism. You may have noticed that we've now started locking the gates again at 10 o'clock at night. And very simply, if your car isn't off the car park at 10 o'clock at night, it will still be here at 7 o'clock in the morning. And trust me, we've nearly fell foul of that at a couple of meetings recently, which have gone on. Talking to the park in general, we've now started a programme of weed control around the fitness equipment and underneath the park benches to try and make them that you don't get stung when you sit down. And we're also dealing with the Badger Territorial Latrine, which is over by the play park. They're being evicted.
They're being encouraged to go elsewhere.
Exactly. Community centre. A draft invitation to tender has been put together for architects to carry out a feasibility study for a new community centre. A separate subcommittee has been established to handle this, and there is some urgency for this, as was mentioned earlier, because of the new homes bonus. We have a September deadline on getting this process started, because this will provide, or could provide, funds that would help the project to go ahead. It's probably one of the biggest projects as a council in the history of Aston we've undertaken if it comes to fruition. So that's a very exciting thing. Now, the next and final thing I'm going to discuss is a pavilion. That we'll be as open as we possibly can. No design, if we can avoid going down close the book. We've had a discussion with the council's preferred bidder regarding their proposal for the occupancy of the pavilion. In response to feedback received from the community, the preferred bidder has said they will be applying for a licence for the sale of alcohol. Additionally, they will be installing a bar fitting in the large room to enable the sale of alcohol when it's hired out for private functions. Following this, the council has issued a letter of intent to them stipulating the terms and conditions that would enable an agreement between the two parties to be implemented. Both parties have agreed to maintain confidentiality until such time as the lease is agreed and signed. The matter is now with the legal teams representing each party. At this stage, every effort will be made to try and get these premises open in time for the Colts Fun Day on the 5th of July. It is important to stress, however, whilst we have had some satisfactory references and credit checks back, we are still awaiting returns from one of their landlords and a couple of other sources to complete our due diligence checks. And I want to stress, we will not be concluding the legal process until all of our due diligence checks are complete. That is the feedback from the facilities.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Any questions from anybody else around the table on that report? I will circulate it before the meeting. Right. What I'd like to do now is raise the subject of what I believe is the final step in the process of the boundary issue. I prepared, based on my insight over the last year or so, a brief for the councillors. I'll pick out some of the key points. In January 2014, the Parish Council and Professor and Mrs. Peel came to a resolution with regards to the boundary situation, and this was settled in what is called a Part 36 settlement. Part of the aspect of a Part 36, or this Part 36 settlement involved a mutually agreed boundary swap, land swap between the two parties. It is down where the pond is, bottom end of the woods, so at the sort of most easterly end of the park, and we have a diagram which has been drawn up by legal parties, and you're more than welcome to have a look at it afterwards, but it shows that, and this was what the previous council had agreed, that the weir, where it comes out of the large pond and goes down and then down into the lower level stream, that area of the weir would become parish council property, land responsibility, and a parcel of land which is towards, let's say, the northeast side of that bank would become Professor and Mrs. Peel's. That has all been agreed, settled. We have been asked by the solicitors acting on behalf of the council to pass a motion to confirm our acceptance of the diagrams and the methods in which they're going to follow this up. My understanding is that it will now be a boundary agreement they will be putting together rather than a land registry documentation. And as I say, the Bucks legal team is now asking that council confirms whether or not we approve it. So the motion, and we've discussed this at a facilities committee meeting, and every councillor has had the opportunity to go down and look at the environment down there and understand the implications. I think somebody asked, did somebody ask you about the consequences of it? Yes. Don't believe there are any additional costs for this bit. We are still, as you heard, picking up some legal costs from Bucks County Council, £64 for one email, was it? One email. Yes.
From about 18 months ago.
Right.
Not a recent email.
No. But we do assume the responsibility for the welfare of the weir itself now, where the water outfall is that goes down into the lower pond area. Benefit, I can't put a picture on that today myself. Anybody else got a view on what the benefits might be? Because that's not something that's cropped up in our discussion. We're taking this sort of as given to us in terms of Bucks County Council's asked to pass a resolution on it. The councillors will indulge me.
Did you have
I was going to say,
I was
going to say, if councillors are content, I'd like to invite Mr. Loxley too.
Only one small point. There will be an issue of who clears debris that comes over the weir. It's not a major issue, but debris and sometimes substantial bits of timber, depending on the weather, will accumulate and need clearing.
Fine, if councillor would indulge us, then I'd like to invite Professor Peel to provide some clarity on that matter.
Certainly. Dealing with the last part first, yes, that is our responsibility. We are responsible for the debris clearance there. Could I just make two things clear? The request for the land swap came from the previous council. The point that was made by the then chairman was that the land registry boundary ran across the top of the weir, with half being in Old Redwood Farm ownership and half in the council's ownership. And he made the valid point that this was then extremely difficult to maintain and legally difficult for the future in terms of and so that is why it was decided that as long ago as the heads of agreement meeting the previous year, it was put forward and accepted, and it became it was put forward in the council's offer to settle the dispute, and we accepted it. What that means is, as your chairman has pointed out, that the council accepts responsibility for the weir. What we did, we pointed out that the council hadn't quite asked for enough, and we've increased in order that the full structure is there, that you've got it. And the second thing, there was no part in the agreement about having a right onto our land to do any necessary maintenance, and we thought that was an oversight, so we suggested that so that the council can come into the pool to repair the weir. But we have total responsibility for the water and the clearance, so all complaints about that to me, please. And the other thing I would remind the councillors that the council has responsibility, public liability, which you're surely ensuring, for people crossing the weir on the gap there. Thank you.
Thank you. So, in the light of that additional clarification and input, does that raise any other questions from around the table?
No.
No. Fine. So, return to the motion that council approves the proposed land swap plan for the boundary between Aston Park and Old Rectory Farm. Do I propose for the motion? Do I have a seconder? Tom and Peter. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Fine. So, around the table, any other urgent business or matters for the next meeting? Susie? Oh, no. Jean?
Yes, I would like to look again at having extra dog refuse bins in the village.
Fine, we'll pick that up at the next meeting. Peter?
Manager.
Assistant.
Colin?
No, just one would be about the church. I'll take up the facilities if that's okay. I can deal with it within that, can I?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Fine. To the floor, any points for the next meeting that you'd like just to take on board? Bear in mind, you can always call the clerk, drop her an email. We can't do face more.
The potholes which come from the Aston Clinton roundabout coming towards here, absolutely huge in the middle of the road. In view of the light of the accident that happened the weekend, obviously coming down Tring Hill there, we're just very sad for that lady with the potholes and the bikes and so forth. Is there any way we can get something looked at there?
That's not even our parish, unfortunately.
No, that isn't, but you're talking about...
I'm talking about the ones coming from the petrol station down outside the vets in the middle of the road. They're
Oh,
like this
okay.
wide.
So that something like that doesn't happen again.
But we can raise that with Bucks County.
Yeah, it's got to be
As a council, we can raise that. Okay, fine. You did I say hand over there?
Just being troublesome, but when we talk about churchyards, we've got 2 churches in our village, and nobody ever thinks about the fact that there's a discriminatory matter regarding you do the Church of England churchyard, but you don't touch the Baptist.
Just bear with me. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we haven't done a course yet, but our responsibility is graveyards, isn't it?
We can bury a couple of people in it.
I think that is the differentiator. It is a graveyard that we are responsible for as opposed to a churchyard. And not nitpicking, but that is the legal responsibility of the council.
And the definition is it's a closed graveyard, so it's part of the remit of the parish council.
We are learning about those things like that now, but class going on a course shortly as well.
Just testing.
Thank you. Fine, anything else?
Thank you, Chairman. Forgive me if I've missed things in the past, because this is my second meeting. The new proposed community centre project, which you're looking for funding for new homes bonus potentially by September. And I think I heard there was tenders for architects.
Well, we put a draft invitation to tender together.
How's the input into what the building is going to look like? So you're going to have a dance studio, you're going to have meeting rooms, and how does that all feed into by September?
I'm happy to take this offline, or I'm happy to do it now. Reggie Bay now?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Once that building became available, when the previous council looked at it, they said, no, what do we do? It's tired and it's not particularly friendly for multi-user occupancy, and it doesn't have height and all the other negatives. That doesn't mean to say that our future may not be in there, or a modified version of it. But a survey was done, and we had some 350 responses online and paper-based in February, March. That fed into a what type briefing paper for the previous council, and the option was put on the table, and there's very little money available, if any, for material refurbishment. More substantial sources available for new build, and the guidance and support we've had from AVDC and others is start seriously looking at new build. We're in a completely different category. Technical stuff, CC3B is what we need. I don't know where that fits in, but it's in the 1,500 resident type capacity as opposed to 4,000. So that has we've also been guided by Sports England in terms of you start with the badminton court, because that then allows you to get some money from them. You look at eco-type facilities, because that gives you other funding opportunities. So we put together a shopping list, using Carol's expression earlier, a shopping list of the things we want in there. And what we have also done subsequently, and I haven't written this up for councillors yet, is we've been having bilateral meetings with all of the user groups around the village and getting their input into how many meters do you have, where do you currently go? We're not trying to steal you from somewhere else, but if you had a big facility, etc., could you use this? And then, of course, we've got the 2 football operations here. And I've actually got a meeting with them on Saturday morning to talk to the football club, and we've spoken to the Colts. So that picture is all coming together in terms of the user requirements, if I'm calling those, more an IT term, but in terms of inputs. The architects want that as a starting point. They made it quite clear in the informal discussions, do you know what you want? So we're building that picture.
Good answer, thank you.
And we're hoping to have the first meeting of the Community Centre Subcommittee, which will be a public meeting, back in the next week. We haven't landed on a date and time yet, I don't think. That will be the first meeting, and we'll be looking, but the idea is to try and get that project going, because it's going to take 2 or 3 months to do a feasibility study.
Thank you. Can I just come back?
Yeah.
I went through a similar project on Cold Harbour many years ago, and that was developer money, and mistakes were made in terms of storage and things like that. So They built a nice hall for badminton and all the rest of it, and a big meeting room and so on and so forth. It's an excellent centre there, but they didn't build any cupboards and things. So Parish Council ended up post-developer design pre-Parish Council, rushing around buying cupboards and stuff. So
I think we have a councillor now who's actually responsible for turnkey solutions on supermarkets and the like. So, yeah, but we take your point entirely about thinking through the whole problem.
Are you Mr. Hughes?
yes,
Oh.
yeah.
So you might like to come to that meeting and...
Jill could talk to Keith Gray and find out what mistakes were made.
Right, fine. Yeah, we're very keen to learn, you know, we'll gather all the input we can, to be sure. Fine, thank you. Anything else? Fine. Date next meeting, Jill?
Wednesday, the 1st of July.
Fine, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.